Today I'll demonstrate how to build drawers with a locking rabbet joint, and it's just the perfect joint for this application because it mechanically resists the opening of the drawer. Now my approach with the locking rabbet joint is a variation on the quarter method, which you may have heard of, but I think this approach is easier to tackle and a bit safer as well. And luckily you won't need any special tools or fancy jigs. In fact, if you're building cabinet boxes and frame and panel cabinet doors, it's really the same equipment required there. We'll start with simple dados in the sides of the drawer and then make a tongue or a rabbet to fit. Now amazingly, this setup only requires one rip fence adjustment to dial in that perfect fit. Of course, the cabinet openings determine the dimensions of your drawers, and I like to make mine about a 1/4 inch less than the overall length and 1 inch less than the overall width to account for the drawer slides. Well, I think cabinet construction in general tends to generate a lot of questions, whether that's building the cabinet boxes, frame and panel doors, or drawer construction. Either way, if you have a question, drop me a note in the comment section. The slides are over travel, so you get that extra access to the back of your drawer, which is a great feature. And these locking rabbet joints are just so sturdy, they'll be reliable for 40 or 50 years. To get started, I'll mill up some lumber. I'm using poplar in this case, but maple would be a really good choice for building cabinets as well. As far as the drawer boxes, you wouldn't even have to use solid wood. Plywood would work just as well with these joinery techniques. And then as far as specialty tools, you really don't need much, just a table saw and a good dado blade. But I would say if you have a fine-tooth dado blade, that'll give you the best results with this joinery. Install a 5/16 inch wide dado stack and we'll get the table saw set up. For that, you want to raise the blade to 5/16 inch and also set the rip fence so it's 5/16 from the dado blade. And the first cut at the table saw is to make dados on both ends of these side pieces for our drawers, and that'll get the joinery started. And here's where I don't like the quarter method, because the next step would have you milling the front and back of the drawer vertically up against the fence. Well, that's fine. My high-low fence has plenty of support there. The problem though is if you look very closely at the insert for your dado blade, it may not offer the support you need to pass a workpiece like this over the blade. And here you can see that as I pass the board in this orientation over the blade, as I start to cut away the rabbet on the front of this board, I would totally lose support and my workpiece would want to dive in back behind the blade. Now the only reasonable solution to that would be to use an actual zero clearance insert for the dado, but you'd have to have a bunch of different combinations for all the different widths that you might commonly use at the table saw. So instead, I'm just going to reset the table saw to make this second cut. For this step, I've added a sacrificial fence to the table saw. Most people have something like that. If you don't, it's just a strip of plywood that you clamp to the rip fence. The blade height remains unchanged, and you just want to set the fence for a 5/16 wide rabbet. So here we can see the fit is really snug and everything is flush on the outside edge. We just need to make the rabbet a little bit wider so it'll bottom out in that groove. And on the second pass, looks like a nice snug fit. So we'll use that fence setting that worked for us on a test piece to batch out the rest of our drawer parts. And then we'll cut the groove for the drawer bottom and all of our work pieces. Just a little bit of record keeping there. Make sure to mark which side you want that groove on, because on your front and back pieces, the rabbets are actually on the opposite side as your groove for the drawer bottom. Whereas on your side pieces, the grooves will go on the same side as those dados. Now for the drawer bottoms, we'll need a groove in all of our parts. And in my case, I'm using 1/2 inch plywood. So we'll set that dado blade about a 1/2 inch from the rip fence on the inside edge there. And that'll be a good setup to cut all these grooves in our parts. Now the blade height is still the same at 5/16 of an inch. And that'll work for me, but if you happen to be using 1/4 inch plywood for your drawer bottoms, you may just be better off using a full kerf single blade and just make 2 passes until your plywood fits just right. Just look at how nice that joint comes together. My goal is always to get that with a little bit of hand pressure, but if it takes a tap from a mallet now and then, that's okay too. And then just quickly dry assemble the drawer to get an accurate measurement for the bottom panel. And as far as the exposed grooves on the front of the drawer, not to worry, that'll get covered up by the false front. Use a scrap of plywood to set your dado blade up for that rabbeting cut. Once you have a nice fit, go ahead and make all those cuts for each plywood bottom. A quick way to check if the joinery is right is to see if that bottom panel that's now rabbeted will fit into a drawer box that's been clamped together. Well, looks good. At assembly time, you'll appreciate these locking rabbet joints, not just that they're strong, but they're really self-aligning. And the thing I like about them is it only requires 2 clamps per drawer. Just get everything assembled, add some clamping pressure, and give it a quick check for square across the diagonals. Hey, do you want to learn more about painting your own cabinets with an HVLP sprayer? Just check out the description box. You'll find some great resources there, videos for painting your own cabinets, from primer to what paint to use, and the spray rig itself. It's worth a look if you're getting into cabinet building. Remember to paint up the drawer fronts and any trim you might need for the project as you get ready to install the drawers. And if you made the drawer boxes an inch narrower than the opening, they should fit well as you install the drawer slides. I'm sure you'll also want some cabinet doors for this project, so if you want more information on building shaker style cabinet doors, I've got resources for you there as well. Here's a neat trick for installing the drawer fronts without relying on clamps or double-sided tape. Just go ahead and drill your holes for your hardware as normal, and then use a spacer to actually locate the drawer front to the box through those holes. Then make permanent attachment through the inside of the drawer as you normally would, but you get to skip the clamps or the double-sided tape. Finally, just remove your screws and install that hardware as usual, and you'll be off to the races, adding all your drawer fronts. Just think how nice it'll be to have that extra storage, especially well-made drawers that'll stand up to heavy use in the shop. Well, I might be biased, but I think it's a good topic. Hit me with a thumbs up if you liked it too. Otherwise, drop down to the description box. There you'll find some of my favorite products and tools for doing a project like this. And hey, if you're getting into cabinet building or want to try drawer making, consider that locking rabbet method. See you on the next one.